Good day, CrimeTalk aficionados. I hope you're having a great week. Now, we may get into a little bit of sports talk today as it relates to, criminal charges when a former head coach gets charged because of his mistress. We'll talk about that. Jury deliberations begin in the high-profile case of Brian Walsh, a pregnant Michigan woman found dead in the forest. We'll bring you all those details. A Charlotte Brewery co-owner has been arrested. Wait until you hear for what. A Wisconsin church elder arrested. I wonder what that could be about. With this day in legal history, our legal quote of the day has to do with finding the truth and our dumb criminal. Let's talk about it.
All right, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't. Like if you do. Leave me a comment below, and make sure you hit that little bell for notifications. And remember, you can check us out on any of your favorite podcasting apps as well. Let me remind you to go to crimetalksearch.com. Sign up for a background subscription service today. When you do, you'll be able to do a background search on as many people as you desire here in the United States. The report is literally prepared while you wait. It is then emailed to you, and you get all types of information. It's going to give you information about social media presence, email addresses, phone numbers. You're going to find out if people are married, divorced. You are going to find out everything about somebody. You're going to find out how many cars they've owned over the years. And most importantly, criminal history. And are they on one of those sex offender registries? Everything you want to know about a person before you get involved with them. Or maybe you just want to check them out to see if maybe there's somebody that you need to get out of your life because there's something about you there's something about them not giving you a warm, fuzzy feeling. So, who is going to be using a background search for the search of their next coach? The University of Michigan football team. That's right. And guess who's also going to have his name run through a few background checks in the future? Sherrone Moore, the now former football coach for the University of Michigan. He has experienced a, let's say, severe professional and personal collapse in the past couple of days. Now, his tenure, which was quite promising after he succeeded Jim Harbaugh following the 2023 national championship, ended abruptly due to revelations of an extramarital affair with a subordinate. And we've talked about this several times. Relationships at the office, they just don't work. All right. It never ends well. I have seen this. You have managers where they're dating somebody and everybody thinks that the person that they're dating gets preference because they're dating the manager or something like that. It just never works out. Usually somebody is married, just like in the case of Coach Moore. And guess what? It all comes down and it's always ugly. And guess what? The University of Michigan is probably going to pay out money to this assistant who is engaging in this affair. Mark my words, she will clean up financially from the University of Michigan as well. So how did things happen? What do we know? All right. We know, like I said, Sherrone Moore, he was the football coach. Now, he did lose to Ohio. So maybe this was a reason for him to get booted since he lost to Ohio State the other week and lost the Big 12 championship. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I don't think so. So what we do know is that apparently Coach Moore had hired a young woman by the name of Paige Shriver. All right. And she was his executive assistant there for the Michigan football program. And it was the daughter of the Chicago Bears executive, Jeff Shiver. So apparently this little extramarital affair began. And Ms. Shriver, who was an employee, then an assistant, got a significant pay raise. She had a 55% increase in her from the original $41,000, getting her close to, I think, some $90,000. And apparently, like I said, she received this pay increase once the extramarital tryst began. Well, she also presented evidence, text, emails, documents to university officials exposing the relationship because apparently there'd been a little speculation that things had been, something had been going on. And then there were allegations that Miss Shiver got pregnant and that Coach Moore was pressuring her to terminate the pregnancy, which apparently she did. As we talked about in yesterday's show, we had the guy shoving the Plan B down his girlfriend's throat, the doctor. And then the other guy that got convicted the other day because his girlfriend wouldn't terminate the pregnancy. So he did what, most people would do. And that'd be, oh, yeah, that's right. No, don't do it. But he did. He thought it'd be a good idea to kill his woman that he was having a child with because he didn't want his wife to find out. Well, kind of something similar along the lines here. So where is this going? How did this become criminal, right? Well, apparently, like I said, we got these rumors swirling around about this investigation, about this extramarital affair. People have been talking about it. Apparently, there's been some tensions that were escalating as the football season progressed. Moore exhibited some erratic behavior, berating assistant coaches, apparently, displaying paranoia, thinking that people in Michigan were out to get him. Donors reportedly withheld contributions upon learning of these allegations. And Shiver's salary hike, tied to her role as Moore's executive assistant, fueled speculation of a quid pro quo arrangement amid this ongoing affair. Then, December 8th, preemptive firing. In a desperate bid to contain the issue, Moore fired Shiver from her position. That's where things going to get ugly. This action apparently backfired spectacularly. On September 10th, Shiver provided irrefutable evidence to the university officials, including text messages, emails, and other documents detailing their multi-year affair. Prosecutors later confirmed the relationship had spanned several years. The Board of Regents convened an emergency meeting, leading to Moore's termination for cause around noon on the 10th. This voided most of his remaining, wait for it, $30 million contract buyout. Obviously going to leave him financially devastated, wouldn't you agree? Ooh, I was going to earn $30 million, but I couldn't keep in his pants, and it all went downhill from there. So then what happens? Once again, this is early morning on the 10th. At 4:10, there's an incident at the mistress's apartment. Hours after his firing, Moore allegedly broke a frantic call from Kelly Moore reporting that Sherrone as suicidal en route to confront Shiver. Upon arrival, Moore repeatedly held a knife to his own throat, threatening self-harm while blaming Shiver for destroying his life and career. He he alternated between accusing her of obsession and professing lingering affection. Fearing for her safety, Shiver barricaded herself. Moore then fled on foot. Police apprehended Moore at a nearby church about 8:30 p.m. He was detained by the Washtenaw County Jail, initially on suspicion of assault. By December 12th, formal charges were filed. Third-degree home invasion, which is a felony, stalking, felony, breaking and entering, which is a misdemeanor, but most cases that's usually a felony. Bail conditions include no contact with Shiver, mandatory mental health evaluation, and GPS monitoring if released from custody. Prosecutors described the stalking as ongoing for months, involving persistent, unwanted communications post-breakup. Now, of course, the university got to get out there in front of it, right? We're going to continue to investigate it, and they vowed to continue the probe and reinforcing policies reform stemming from prior scandals. Anyway, social media erupted with unconfirmed rumors, including Shiver's alleged pregnancy and Moore's coercion regarding an abortion, claims lacking substantiation. But, so far things need to be looked at with a grain of salt for sure. Anyway, Moore's downfall marks the latest in a series of controversies for the Michigan Athletics Department, including the 2023 sign stealing saga, for which for which Mr. Moore served a 3-game suspension and unrelated leadership scandals. Now, he is one of the few black head coaches in Major League Football, and his case obviously is... some people are going to say it's racially motivated. He didn't get a fair shot. I would say it was completely the other way around because when his former boss left to go coach in the pros, he was basically given the job, and he screwed it up and now is facing felony charges, losing out on his $30 million contract that's void now for cause, and he may be a felon. Now, he'll get off on a felony, he won't get a felony or something along those lines, but this just goes to show, ladies and gentlemen, what do we see about all of these cases usually where women end up dead and there's a husband and a lover, these little love triangles never, ever end well. Somebody gets upset, somebody breaks it off, somebody else thinks it's going to last forever, and next thing you know, you got a coach at a major university, losing his job, potentially losing his family life. He is married with 3 daughters. And on top of that, the young assistant who thought it was all fun and games while she was sleeping with the head coach, and then it ended, she held the card, so to speak, to ruin his career. So little practice pointer here. Never ends well to date somebody at the office. It's going to end ugly. And when they have all the cards, guess what, Coach Moore? You're going down. All right. Enough of the sports talk on Crime Talk. All right. Let's get to the rest of the docket. Jury deliberations in the Brian Walsh trial have begun. So the Norfolk County jury has commenced deliberations in the first-degree murder trial of Brian Walsh. They're in Massachusetts as it relates to being accused of killing his wife, Anna Walsh, and then dismembering and disposing of her remains back in early of 2023. Now, the jury, made up of 6 men and 6 women, received the case Friday morning following closing arguments from both the prosecution and defense. For those who aren't familiar with the case, Anna Walsh, 39-year-old real estate executive, was last seen alive on New Year's Eve in December of 2022. She vanished shortly after returning to the couple's home from Washington, D.C., where she had been working. Her body has never, in fact, been recovered. Now, prosecutors allege that Brian Walsh murdered his wife in a premeditated act, motivated in part by marital strife and suspicions of infidelity, then systematically dismembering her remains and discarding them into multiple dumpsters. Over 8 days of testimony, the Commonwealth presented surveillance footage showing the defendant purchasing tools, including a hacksaw, hatchet, and cleaning supplies, and introduced internet search records from his devices that included queries such as how to dispose of a body and methods of removing DNA evidence. In her closing statement, Assistant District Attorney Ann Yass described the case as one of a marriage reaching a breaking point. Anna Walsh is dead because the defendant murdered her, Yass told the jurors, urging them to return the verdict of premeditation, first-degree murder based upon the cumulative weight of the evidence and common sense. Now, the defense, led by attorney Larry Tipton, conceded that Walsh did in fact dispose of his wife's remains and made misleading statements to the investigators, but maintained there is no direct evidence he caused her death. Tipton portrayed Walsh as a devoted husband and father who discovered Anna already deceased upon returning home after a New Year's Eve celebration, arguing her death resulted from an unexpected medical event that triggered panic rather than premeditation. He emphasized the absence of any digital or documentary proof of planned or intent to kill. Now, the defense rested without calling any witnesses or having Mr. Walsh testify himself. Now, jurors must determine whether the Commonwealth has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Walsh committed first-degree murder, requiring premeditation and deliberate malice aforethought, or second-degree murder. Earlier this month, a jury selection began where Walsh entered a guilty plea to the separate charges of misleading investigators and improperly disposing of his wife's remains, because that's what you do if she died of natural causes, right? Anyway, those admissions effectively precluded any defense that Anna Walsh might still be alive or that her death remains unconfirmed. Now, testimony during the trial did include accounts from Anna Walsh's colleagues and friends describing strains in their marriage, as well as evidence of her romantic relationship with a Washington, D.C. real estate broker. Prosecutors highlighted financial and legal pressures on the couple, including Walsh's pending federal art fraud case that restricted family travel. Now, deliberations are going to take place under tight security, and a verdict could come as early as today or extend into next week, depending on the complexity of the evidence and, well, how much time the jury wants to put into their discussions. Now, you would note the prosecution had to present their evidence. They didn't have a body, but they had the admissions that Mr. Walsh chopped up his wife and disposed of her. There's no evidence of any medical emergency whatsoever. I'm surprised the defense actually got to argue that. There is also no evidence whatsoever that he was somehow panicked or anything along those lines. We have admissions that he chopped her up. That's it. I think it would be hard pressed for a jury not to convict, if not on first, at least second degree murder here. But hey, we've seen some crazy things happen in Massachusetts recently. Maybe they're going to become like the California on the East Coast. I don't know. I think this should be pretty straightforward. Think about it. If your spouse, your wife, your significant other, a good family friend, for God's sake, was found dead because of a medical emergency, why wouldn't you just call the police if it was a medical emergency? Why would you chop up their body, clean up the chopping up the body, and then lie about it to investigators? Why not say, I just had a really bad day. I got freaked out a little bit, decided to chop her up, spread her around town. Yeah, it makes no sense to me, ladies and gentlemen. I really don't understand what the defense was doing here in this particular case. And frankly, had you gone with the not guilty on the disposal and the false statements, you could have had a better chance by basically saying, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Walsh is going to walk in that door any second now. Here she comes, because she's not dead. But you took away that defense. It made no sense. Basically, there's no direct evidence that he killed her. Well, there's no evidence that there was anything that took place other than murder. Anyway, next, a pregnant woman in Michigan found dead in the forest. And this gets weird. We brought you this story the other day. But police in northern Michigan have charged a woman and her husband with the premeditated murder of their pregnant adult daughter, alleging the couple stabbed the victim and surgically removed her near-term unborn child from her womb while she was still alive. The case obviously is somewhat shocking, with the allegations of some significant family betrayal, don't you think? Throw in a little infidelity and some little calculated violence, you got yourself a story. So Rebecca K. Park, she was 33, and she was approximately 38 weeks pregnant and due to deliver on November 18th, was last seen shortly before midnight on November 3rd of this year, leaving her mother's residence in Boone Township, Wexford County. Now, her fiance, Richard Fallor, F-A-L-O-R, told local media that Park entered a waiting vehicle after telling her mother she had to, quote, take care of something, end quote. Now, Park was officially reported missing the following day. Extensive searches involving multiple agencies ensued, heightened by concerns for both her safety and that of the unborn child. Now, on November 25th, searchers located Park's body in a remote area of the Manatees National Forest. An autopsy confirmed she had suffered fatal injuries and that the fetus had been forcefully removed. No trace of the infant has been found, and investigators believe the baby did not survive. Cell phone records and subsequent interviews led detectives to focus on Park's mother, Courtney Bartholomew, and stepfather, Bradley Bartholomew. The couple has been arrested on December 1st and arraigned the following day on multiple felony counts, which include first-degree premeditated murder, felony murder, torture, conspiracy to commit torture, assault on a pregnant individual causing death to an unborn child, conspiracy to commit the above assault, unlawful imprisonment, mutilation, concealment of a dead body, and all of the most serious charges carry mandatory life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Now, the Bartholomews are being held without bond in the Wexford County Jail. Now, during the preliminary hearing, the Wexford County prosecutor described the alleged crime as premeditated torture and murder, stating that the couple had researched their plan in advance. The prosecutor told the court that Bradley Bartholomew transported Park to a wooded area where the pair allegedly stabbed her multiple times, forcing her onto the ground, and then used a scalpel to extract the fetus while Park remained conscious. Court documents indicate that each defendant had pointed to the other as the primary instigator. Courtney Bartholomew initially denied involvement, but when confronted with location data from her phone, placing her at the crime scene, reportedly admitted to performing the cesarean-like procedure, and she claimed her intent was to save the infant and deliver it to Park's fiancé, and alleged that Bradley held a knife to her daughter's throat during the act. Now, Bradley Bartholomew, in turn, reportedly told investigators that Courtney orchestrated the killing because she desperately wanted another child, but was unable to adopt due to his status as a registered sex offender stemming from a prior conviction. Additional affidavits reveal a complex web of overlapping romantic relationships within the family. Both Courtney Bartholomew and Park's sister, Kimberly Park, reportedly admitted to investigators that they had been romantically involved with Richard Fowler, Rebecca Park's fiancé. Now, Courtney Bartholomew further claimed that the unborn child was fathered by her husband, Bradley. Separately, Kimberly Park and Richard Fowler were arrested on November 26 of 2025, the day after the body was discovered, and later released on a significantly reduced bond. Kimberly Park faces charges of tampering with evidence, lying to police, and filing a false police report, and she is currently on house arrest. Fowler was charged with 2 counts of delivery of methamphetamine and had been released pending trial. Now, investigators continue to search for the remains of the infant and have not ruled out additional charges. Obviously, the case is an active investigation. A preliminary hearing for Courtney and Bradley Bartholomew is scheduled for late December of 2025. That's a really bizarre one, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Talk about can't making this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. Seriously. Life. Next, a Charlotte Brewery co-owner has been arrested on charges of statutory rape. That's right. Justin Tawes Brigham, 44, the co-owner of the Sagamore Brewing, one of Charlotte's largest and most prominent craft breweries, was arrested Thursday on multiple felony charges stemming from an alleged sexual assault on a 13-year-old girl. According to police, Brigham is accused of breaking into the residence in Stanfield, North Carolina, entering the victim's bedroom and sexually assaulting her. The incident reportedly occurred shortly before midnight on Wednesday. The girl's parents discovered Brigham in the room, prompting an immediate call to police. Deputies for the Stanley County Sheriff's Office responded to the scene and located Brigham nearby, allegedly naked inside a vehicle. He was taken into custody without further incident. Now, Brigham faces 3 felony counts: statutory rape of a child under 15, first-degree burglary, and indecent liberties with a child, and he's currently being held in the Stanley County Detention Center on a $10 million bond. Now, during an initial court appearance, the judge imposed strict conditions in the event bail is posted, including surrendering a passport, a prohibition on leaving North Carolina, having no contact with the alleged victim, and obviously complete ban on social media use. In response to the arrest, Sarah Taylor, Brigham's wife and co-owner of the brewing company, issued a public statement announcing that Brigham has fully divested his ownership interest in the company and will have no future involvement with the business. Taylor has assumed sole leadership in the brewery. Nothing says love like "you are completely out and I am the boss now." She also said, quote, "I am devastated by the charges against Justin and the pain that he has inflicted on our family and others," she wrote. "And our team remains our highest priority as a mom and a business owner." Needless to say, the announcement has prompted swift backlash within the local craft beer community. Several establishments have publicly distanced themselves from the brand. Freya's House, a beer garden on the North Carolina coast, stated it has removed all of the Sycamore Brewing products from its taps and will donate proceeds from certain sales to a local rape crisis center. Two Charlotte venues also confirmed that they have ceased serving Sycamore beers. The investigation remains active, with no trial date having been set since he was just arrested. And Brigham is obviously innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Once again, you can't make this stuff up, can you, ladies and gentlemen? Nope, you can't. Anyway, how about this? A Wisconsin church elder arrested. Wait for it. For multiple child sex assault charges. Who would have thought? Anyway, a 58-year-old elder from a northern Illinois church with ties to the southwestern Wisconsin has been charged with repeated sexual assault on a child, incest, and additional counts of child sexual assault after authorities say he admitted 2 years of abusing a girl beginning when she was approximately 6 years old. So, please meet Greg R. Duma of Winthrop Harbor, Illinois. He was taken into custody last week following an investigation launched by the Pleasant Prairie Police on November 23rd of this year. The case came to light when a Wisconsin Department of Children and Family Services employee contacted police after the victim, now under the age of 13, disclosed the abuse while receiving inpatient mental health treatment. Mandatory reporters. According to the criminal complaint, the girl described the assaults beginning when she was 6 or 7 and continued until the age of 12. She told investigators the incident typically started when Duma offered to let her watch videos on his phone, often cooking-related content she enjoyed, while she lay on her stomach on a bed. The complaint states that Duma then sexually assaulted her during these sessions. The victim reportedly explained that the abuse persisted in part because it allowed her to watch the videos while Duma engaged in what she described in child-appropriate terms as adult intimate contact that makes them feel good. She also stated that Duma warned her the acts were illegal and that disclosure would lead to the end of his marriage. In a phone call last month, the girl informed Duma she would no longer keep the secret, and according to the charging documents, he pleaded with her not to tell anyone, but ultimately replied okay when she refused to continue lying. Can you say surreptitiously recorded phone call with the police? Yes, you can. Detectives interviewed Duma the following Friday, and police say he fully confessed, confirmed the girl's account, and acknowledged that the frequency of assaults had increased over the past 2 years. When asked to estimate, how many times the abuse may have occurred, Duma reportedly said it happened an awful lot over the years, but he couldn't provide a specific number. Duma served as an elder at the Point, a non-denominational church in Winthrop Harbor. Following news of the charges, news to say the church removed all reference to him from its website and YouTube channel, though a November 1 Facebook post honoring pastoral leadership still includes his name at the time of this reporting. Now, he appeared in the Kenosha County Circuit Court on Monday, where the judge set a cash bond at $50,000. Coincidentally, Duma posted the bond the same day and was released. His next court date is set for December 16th. Next on the docket, this day in legal history. On this date, December 12th, 1787, delegates in Philadelphia voted 46-23 to ratify the proposed U.S. Constitution, making Pennsylvania the second state to ratify after Delaware. As the first large state to ratify, it was a crucial step towards establishing the new federal government. On this date, 1961, the United States Supreme Court heard arguments in Coppage versus United States, later holding that indigent criminal defendants seeking to appeal informis pauperis, which means you're broke, you're a pauper, are entitled to have the merits of their appeals considered unless the issues are so frivolous that the appeal would be dismissed if paid. Obviously, it remains an important case on access to appellate review for indigent defendants. That's why when somebody gets convicted, let's say at the district court, trial court level, they're probably more than likely going to be in custody at this point. And so you even have to, when you file your notice of appeal, you have to file a motion to have the defendant proceed informis pauperis, which means he's a pauper. He has no money, and that he can therefore get the transcript and attorney at no cost to himself. Yes, that means the taxpayers are paying for it, but that's probably the right and fair thing to do because we don't want innocent people to go to prison because they got an unfair trial, and we don't want it to not be reversed just because you can't afford to pay for it. On this date, 1968, the United States Supreme Court heard oral argument in Spinelli versus the United States, which refined the Aguilar-Spinelli test for evaluating probable cause based on informant tips, emphasizing the need for reliable basis of knowledge and veracity or truthfulness. Now, this case shapes Fourth Amendment search warrant doctrine until Illinois v. Gates adopted the totality of the circumstances approach. So Spinelli, you still have to have it, still pretty good law. If somebody gives you an anonymous tip, you have to be able to corroborate it. You can't just go kick in somebody's door, get a search warrant based upon an anonymous tip. There must be some corroboration. But if the person's been a reliable confidential informant and they tell you this information, you have to put that information into the affidavit so that the judge knows. On the flip side as well, if the person gives you the tip and they've been an unreliable confidential informant, well, the court needs to know that too when looking at the totality of the circumstances to see if probable cause exists for a warrant. And next, our legal quote of the day. So a landmark legal statement on the paramount importance of truth in the justice system comes from the United States Supreme Court case decided in 1972, Brazenberg v. Hayes, where Justice Byron White, writing for the majority, Byron White, former CU football star back in the 50s, says, quote, "The informative function of the press and the individual's interest in the free dissemination of ideas are of undoubted importance. But the administration of a fair and impartial justice system depends upon the ability of courts and grand juries to discover the truth. Only by requiring the disclosure of the facts can the truth be ascertained and justice done." Obviously, this principle that the pursuit and establishment of the truth is the foundational purpose of the legal process obviously is repeatedly affirmed across American jurisprudence. And finally, our dumb criminal of the day. A woman declares open season on public oral exams. Yep. Wait for this, ladies and gentlemen. So most people, when craving a little afternoon delight, at least pretend to look for a door with a lock on it. Not Sharon Zapolinski of the Greater Marathon, Florida parking lot area. She appears to have adopted the official motto, if it's noon and the Winn-Dixie lot is paved, it's basically a bedroom. Well, the Monroe County deputies rolled up on the supermarket on November 30th after a frantic 911 caller reported, quote, "people having sex," end quote, outside the store. What police found could generously be described as performance art entitled "Three Adults, Zero Shame, One Grocery Cart Corral." Now, according to the arrest report, officers discovered that Ms. Zapinski, flat on her back in broad daylight, pants negotiating an exit strategy, while 43-year-old Marshall Lowry practiced advanced yoga, specifically the face in the crotch move on top of her. A helpful team effort ensued. Lowry tugged the waistband from the middle. Zapinski's arrested from the sides, and the physics did the rest. Privacy level achieved, -5. Now, lest anyone feel left out, 59-year-old Michael Howard was sprawled beside them, apparently live streaming to his own shorts with an erect, uncovered participant proudly saluting the Florida sun. All three were, in the clinical language of law enforcement, completely hammered. Now, this is being billed as Miss Zapinski's encore appearance, because back in August, she was caught at 2:40 a.m. behind a Tom Thumb gas station, delivering a similar open-air TED Talk on Cunnilingus. That time, her co-presenter was a different gentleman, 61-year-old Vincent Cruz, and the venue was the Car Wash Bay. They too were surrounded by empty beer cans, a vodka bottle, and the crushing self-awareness, though not quite crushing enough to, stop. Anyway, the earlier duo eventually pled no contest to disorderly conduct. Zapinski drew probation. Cruz got credit for the 2 weeks he'd already spent enjoying in the county hospitality. Anyway, fast forward to the present. Ms. Zapinski, Lowry, and Howard are now facing misdemeanor charges of indecent exposure, disorderly intoxication, and committing an unnatural and lascivious act. All three have pled not guilty and are scheduled for an arraignment on December 22nd. Now, Lowry made his $3,500 bond and is presumably somewhere private. Zapinski and Howard are still having a roof over their heads, courtesy of the Monroe County Detention Center. Moral of this story, ladies and gentlemen, in the Florida Keys, some traditions never go out of style. Stone crab, key lime pie, and Sherrone Zapinski's treating supermarket parking lots like, a set of a very low-budget adult film. Anyway, stay tuned for the inevitable trilogy. It will be here, I'm sure. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have for today. Thanks for joining us. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. And remember, the Constitution matters.